Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. It helps out the show a ton. And you can follow us on Instagram.
Enjoy.
Yeah, let's kick off the show. Are you ready for the show?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotta cut that. Welcome to the Red Gauge Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Kyle, and to my left, right? I don't know my left or my right.
It is your left.
We're off to a bad start.
It is your left.
Is it? Nice.
Yeah. I'm Josh.
Yeah, that's Josh. Yeah. We should start that one
All
over.
right, let's go.
All right.
I think all 7 minutes of this should be in.
Right at the beginning?
I think that's how we should start the shows.
Just us talking?
Yeah. And then we should literally in the middle of it say, let's start the show.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Even this
Yeah.
right here is in the show,
Uh-huh.
which is crazy that we're in the show
All right.
already. I'm Josh.
I'm Kyle.
This is the Red Gauge Podcast.
This is the Red Gauge Podcast. We're here to talk about primarily training, I guess. Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Training adjacent.
Training adjacent. We've been working with kids for a long time, and we were really motivated to do something mostly on account of our wrestlers. So we'd have our wrestlers asking us crazy questions and doing crazy things. You know, we get them to the start of wrestling season. They're strong, they're explosive, they're in great shape, and by middle of December, they're starting to look green.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It really was a no-brainer once we thought about it. Because me and Kyle have been we haven't always worked at the same spot, but we've always, for probably close to 15 or 20 years, have talked about training.
Mm-hmm.
And it always came up every year of either whether it was a power lifter
Trying to make a weight class, or a power lifter that was a talented wrestler. So you just watch their strength go away, but it's fine. Like that's a nature. But we've just talked about wrestling and how to do something, not about it. I don't want to say like we're doing something about it, but to help the kids. Yeah.
To help the kids. And once we thought about like, well, let's stop talking about it.
Yeah.
And just do something about it. It was like, well, we've been sitting on this idea for 15 years.
Yeah.
So it's exciting because there's been a lot of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't go into an adventure with this much backstory.
Yeah.
As we do going into this.
So before we get into it, though, what's your craziest weightlifter food story? Wrestler food story? Because powerlifters, we've mostly just had issues where, like, if kids would go up a weight class, they'd be 200 pounds stronger, but they're afraid to leave their competition behind, right?
Yeah.
But wrestling's a little different because there's skill things and there's competition and there's,
right. As in powerlifting, before they make the cut,
mm-hmm.
we can just look at the results.
Yeah.
And be like, not worth it.
Yeah,
Look,
don't cut.
There's a mutant.
Or do cut.
There
right?
is a mutant down there.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to cut into a harder weight class.
Yeah.
Or we can be like, well, it's 200 pounds easier. So whereas in wrestling, there might be a mutant that it's like, all right, you're not going to beat that. But it's so skill-based that the kid does. You just don't know. It's not black and white. You're like, I might be able to beat that kid if I go down. So I think that lends itself to wrestling. The cut lends itself to wrestling a little bit more than necessarily powerlifting. But the weirdest thing that I've heard, there's been a lot of weird ones, but to tell you the honest truth, weird becomes normal.
Uh-huh.
Like, and some of this stuff is going back. I know you're not supposed to do some of these things, heavy cuts, spitting, and
right.
And they have done some things to try to reduce how much you could cut.
Yeah, to make it safer, right? Because
Right.
there's a real issue with kids doing crazy stuff, and
Kids still cut a ton.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody's going to learn how to work the system. But probably, and we'll go nameless here, but probably a kid having a mental breakdown and then going and chugging a gallon of water.
Yeah.
So like there's I've been around a lot of mental breakdowns.
Uh-huh.
Never one that the breakdown was
fueled by
just
dehydration.
drinking some water.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like normally that is for his season.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was a big thing. He went and drank a ton of water,
Mm-hmm.
right before a big meet.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, like that might be the
Yeah, he was having a breakdown
the
because
safest mental breakdown in history.
yeah, because he was dehydrated, right?
Yeah.
Like he had pushed it too far for too long and just needed some water.
This one athlete is very much. This happened. That breakdown happened maybe 2 weeks, a week before me and Kyle decided to make this
Yeah.
thing go. So
Yeah. I had a kid in class ask me about which type of juice is the least dense. And I was so baffled by the question that I couldn't even participate. It was like, you've left reality behind. You're asking me crazy stuff now. Like, it took me a little while. Like, the next day I could have a talk about like why that question was insane, but it was such an out of pocket thing to be asked.
So he does not care about the nutrients. He's just looking for light foods. Physically light.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, sure, well, this juice is lighter, but it has 10 more grams of sugar, which means you're going to hold 40 more grams of water or whatever, right? Like whatever that math works out to be.
He's lucky he didn't get a hold of what was it, Splenda, when we got that box of Splenda?
Yeah.
Just shoving Splenda down like, it's got calories, coach. Oh, and Splenda's the lightest thing on planet.
We also had the kid who ate the 6 chocolate chip cookies because it was lighter than a tuna sandwich.
Yep.
That one was
Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
He was over at my place and just ate cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then was like, I can't eat any of the bread.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, you coulda.
Yeah.
You coulda not eaten them cookies.
Yeah, but there's enough research now on, like cutting and supplementation and all those kinds of things where you can have smart plans that you can actually follow through on. I think, one of the hurdles that we might be facing is the fact that a lot of people who get into, whether it's wrestling or powerlifting or weightlifting, is that they like the suffering.
It's part of the
it's part of the joy. It's why it's a big part of the reason I've been training for 20 some odd years now, and I think that at least once a week you should do something that makes your life flash before your eyes. Like, if you aren't doing that, then what's even the point, And so a lot of times I think that they like that they feel gross all the time. It feels like progress, or it feels like success, right? You get that kind of switch in your brain where the uncomfortable thing is for a purpose, and so you really dial it up.
And that's part of the sales pitch of wrestling. It's supposed to be tough.
Right. Yeah.
Like, training is supposed to be tough. You don't hear a UFC fighter talk about a camp being well planned.
Yeah.
It's like, God, camp was tough.
Yeah.
It's part of that, like, it's a combat sport.
Uh-huh.
Basic training it is well planned, but it's tough.
Right.
You're supposed to become tough as a human, which is great.
Yeah, and I think it's really important in life to learn to enjoy the suck, right? Like, there's a million things you're going to have to do to get from wherever you're at to wherever you want to be that are going to be uncomfortable. And, if you can enjoy it, that's really great. It's important, though, to keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't, veer all the way over into something that's unhealthy for you, right? Like something that's hurting you.
Yeah.
I mean, we had growing up, we had a friend who wrestled and was always trying to make it down like 3 weight classes.
Sure.
Right. Super strong, super explosive athlete. And by the time he'd make it down to his, down 3 weight classes, all of his strength and power were gone. And so he'd show up and get, just not have a good time.
Right. Yeah. 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 And that right there is what that birthed it, is how can you allow that kid to make that same journey, but ensure that they're getting everything they need, not only nutrients, but sleep.
Right.
Taking care of their mental health. Like, all those things, and which is even more whatever the hell that word is.
Yeah.
Nowadays with cell phones and social media and stuff like that. So that part really, like, I'm excited to talk to some some coaches and stuff, but I'm excited also to hear about, like, if we have like a brain expert on, you know what I mean? Like, any of those kind of things, just to learn what these kids are really doing to themselves. I always think about, and I was just talking to our local wrestling coach, Chris Lacey, about it was a bodybuilding athlete. He was on bodybuilding.com a while back. This was probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was just a little, like, almost documentary, but it was like through his cut to go to a show.
Okay.
And super intelligent dude. I wish I could remember who it was. Super intelligent guy. And he voiced the whole thing. But by like 2 weeks out, where like his fat intake had gone way down, like, he sounded like an idiot.
Yeah.
And he talked about it. He's like, my cognitive function is so far down. And then I think about, like, man, you know what's really good in wrestling? Cognitive function.
Yeah. Thinking about what's going on, right?
You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to set this up so I can set this up. And one thing we should say, like, I'm not a wrestling expert.
Yeah, me either.
I like watching high school wrestling. I dabble in watching some other things, but really I just enjoy the kids. I think that wrestling breeds really tough ass kids.
Yeah.
So I tend to flock towards those kids in training because they're the kind of kids I like to train. But
yeah, I mean that's the same thing. Like I was saying, I love training. I hope that when I'm 120 years old, they pull my dead body out of the weight room. You know what I mean?
And realize you died at 60.
Yeah. In the weight room,
60 years.
Somebody put more plates on the bar, make it look good. But I always have had the most fun working with kids who you have to down regulate. You know, like they'll go a little too hard if left to their own devices, and so that's always been, you know, the most fun for me. And that seems to be, you know, wrestling, powerlifting, weightlifting. Like it seems to attract those kinds of athletes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're here. We're also starting. We're gonna produce some products. So first one is a protein powder. We're already in the development stage of that. And then we're going to look at other things based on, you know, community feedback and stuff, because we are here for people who are participating in, you know, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, other weight class sports, you know.
Right.
And so we're really trying to learn what the pain points are. Like we know what it's like. We know what the pain points are for coaches, but those aren't always the same thing as, you know, what the athlete feels like they need and stuff.
Right. Yeah, we're here to support we're here to support the wrestling community as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's really anything we're going to let the community drive the ship.
Yeah.
On where we should go
mm-hmm.
in the future, and I think that's a smart way to go about it.
Yep. Yeah, and we're in a pretty fortunate position where we can take our time and make things good. And you know, the protein supplement, we found a GMP lab, and you know, we're working on the testing, third-party testing, and all that kind of stuff. So it should be a good process for us. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it was a great experience taste testing. Loads and loads of protein. It all tasted really good.
Every one of them. You know, it wasn't like we got an hour and a half in and we were like, I guess that's it for today because I'm literally going to die if I drink another.
Yeah, there's times where you just had to. The taste testing was probably useless because you were just so disgusted.
Yeah.
With the flavors.
I'm really hopeful that will pay off in the long run, you know, because
I thought the samples were great.
Yeah, me too. And
we're even tweaking it one more time to try to make it even better.
But, to get it dialed in. But yeah, that was a lot of you know, a lot of learning. Like we learned a ton about food additives and stuff, and like what's safe and what's questionable, and
what doesn't cut the chemical taste out of something.
What magnifies the.
But I mean, if anybody that's been in the world of weightlifting for any amount of time,
mm-hmm.
like there's been some gross protein.
Oh, dude, I remember like the very first time that I bought protein supplements. I don't remember the brand, but it was a name brand. And it was a chocolate one, and I got it home, and you know, I'd seen the advertisings for it, and on the label it was like great taste, you know, less sugar or whatever, right? They had all the stuff, and I remember putting it in some water, mixing it up, and like spit it out all over. I was like, what is this?
Even back in the you know, the old weight room with Coach U, like he would sell those. They might have been Metrix, like MetRx or whatever. Like, I don't remember what brand it was. Just he would sell them for $1.
Yeah,
and it was like.
The protein bars.
You just ate it next to the water fountain. Just take 2 bites, chew up, drink your water, take more bites. Like, it's so strong. And it was like 20 grams of protein. It's like, man, they probably could have either put more protein in it or just make it taste better. Like, it's not a loaded protein or good taste.
Yeah. We both were very fortunate to start our strength training career with a really great coach. So Rich Undersayer, Coach U to everybody. Yep. Wonderful human being. Really, 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 really happy to have ever known him. So he ran a great weight room. Great place to start.
I mean, he probably gets brought up once every other week in our conversations about if we're doing the right thing or basically everything fair or unfair, everything I do, I base off comparison.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I figure if I ever got anywhere near him, I've done a really good job.
Well, and he would always say that, you know, his purpose in life was to serve others, and he lived it. Like he wasn't messing around. You know, he was at that high school weight room from 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. every day. Yep. You know, making it available for kids and trying to keep kids engaged and stuff. So, yeah. So, yeah, contents on the podcast probably going to follow along those same lines, right? Nutrition, injury, training economy, athlete psychology. I'm like training economy has always been my thing. Like that's the thing I've been really obsessed with my whole life because I've always cared so much more about results and outcomes than really anything else.
Yeah, sure.
Right, it's my nature. But as I've worked with more kids and gotten older and stuff, it's kind of switching gears to being a lot more interested in the psychology of it because we've had so many, like kids who have a real talent who don't stick with it, right? They're in it for a little bit and then they move out, or we've seen such big swings in, the preseason training is everybody's there and jazzed and happy to be doing it, and by the end of season you got 20% of your crew left, and
Right.
and so I'm really curious, like that's something I'm hoping we get some good people on to talk about, like how do you keep the people engaged who aren't psychos,
Yeah.
right?
Right, because now there are probably people that are high enough up
Mm-hmm.
that they could base all of their training off just training psychos,
Right.
like personal coaches.
Right.
But for someone like me, who's not in the private sector, I'm in the public sector at a school. I gotta take what I get.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta meet them. Hey, I guess you don't have to. I could just train them all like I go the Russian way and just train everybody one way and just see who comes out of the fire. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm definitely excited to learn, bringing on people that could teach us in all sorts of areas. I hope the most interesting person is in an area we've not even thought about.
Yeah.
Like I hope we can just keep expanding,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how you should do as a lifelong learner.
Right.
But then also just bringing on people that could tell their story, interesting people,
Yeah.
interesting stories.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, like, my sport was track and field, and so I kind of know what it takes to be successful there, and I know, what the successful people have done. I don't know if it's the same in wrestling or in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or,
Right.
whatever else, right? So I'm really interested to have some athletes on and hear some athlete stories, like, what kept them in it, how did they move through the things that were hard.
Yeah, and weirdly, like I guess I would like to listen to somebody who was ultra successful, go through that story, right? Like everybody, like I want to kind of hear about the people that get close
Oh, yeah.
and don't get there,
Right.
like that perseverance to keep going, to try and then not, because as Americans, we're all, right. It's everything we want it to be like Rocky.
Right.
Like, man, it's just that hard work is going to get you there.
Uh-huh.
And this last year, some parents didn't like it. I said that to a group of kids is like, just because you work hard doesn't mean it's like, we always say like, if you work hard enough, you could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's some bullshit. You can't, right?
If you
Like,
can't jump, you're not doing an 8-foot high jump.
right? Yeah, like it didn't matter. Yeah, it didn't matter how hard we talk about this right here. Doesn't matter. I could be on any supplement that I want for 400 years. I am
Special
not gonna
sports
look
supplements
like,
included.
I'm not gonna look like Jay Cutler,
Right.
or Ronnie Coleman,
Right.
or C-Bum,
Right.
right? Those guys, it's just not gonna happen. I could look like the craziest version of Josh Monroe.
Yeah. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But we ain't starting on the same spot.
Yeah, 100% your efforts matter. Like you work hard,
Right.
you will get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, how much better?
And
who knows?
And hard work in my career, hard work has almost always trumped a starting genetic ability.
Yeah.
So I say it all the time. Kids that in the weight room that come in and break a freshman record almost never have a school record, overall school record.
Yeah.
It's just that they were talented young.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we don't get a ton of super talented young kids that also are super driven.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're working with teams. Those when you get the talented kids, there needs to be some kind of system in place to like keep them moving forward. And
Right.
it can be really challenging if they aren't, just bought in on their own, because so my background was track and field, right? And I was almost very good at it. So I herniated a disc my senior year, and that was effectively the end of my track career. Like I had some partial paralysis in my legs.
You're extremely good at it.
Okay. Yeah, sure. But you know, it was a thing where like I was talking to colleges and it was like, you have a good senior season, we've got a spot for you, we can pay for you to be here at some very, very good schools with very, very good coaches. And you know, I had that herniated disc, and it was a real, you know, like kind of traumatic thing because I didn't start training till like halfway through my junior year, and I entered sports pretty messed up. Like knees were wrecked, shoulders were wrecked, elbow was wrecked. So I didn't get those like juicy beginner gains that everybody gets. It was more like juicy beginner suffering for like, you know, the first 6 months. So when I finally started making a lot of progress in the weight room and stuff, everything was going really well in practice. And then right before the season started, herniated disc. Never got to do any crazy stuff, right? It was a bummer. But in the time that, you know, I was doing it, and I got to go to some like big national meets and stuff, got to go to Golden West and everything. And in the time that I was doing it, I probably met 20 people who could have been Olympians.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know, all
the genetic potential was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And very few of them, you know, made it that far. You know, I guess 2 of them that I can think of. Well, no, 4 of them. But, you know, there was a bunch that were like, you know, could have done it and didn't.
Right.
You know? And so I'm always really interested to see what is the, you know, is it injury, right? Or is it psychology, or is it support or mental health, or,
right.
You know, what are the things that turn people off, you know?
And I guess like, it's not fair to say like, oh, this was a really talented 8th grader.
Mm-hmm.
They should be an NFL player.
Right.
They could, or they could be an NFL player.
Right.
But it's seeing that. And I would just love to talk to a sports psychologist about like, as a football coach, there's the things I know I blame it on.
Uh-huh.
You know, like how it's hard for a kid to work hard when for 5 seasons in a row, a coach has just turned around and gave him the ball. And said, go run. You are the most talented person. On defense, he makes all the tackles.
Uh-huh.
That's not a really great way to breed
success
or just work effort. Work ethic. So those are things that I'm really interested in learning about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exciting. I'm hoping that we get some pretty interesting people on it. We got some really interesting people coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, scheduled. So hopefully they don't cancel on us last minute.
Yeah. Don't get a look at this and like,
you know what?
This is going to be a hard pass. Going out to 0 viewers. Listen, if they don't come on, it'll just be the Josh and Kyle show for.
Yeah, we can do it
forever. This is all we do, anyways. Sit in this room and talk to each other. Now we're just with mics. We ready for questions?
Yeah, I'm ready for questions.
Ready for questions?
Yeah.
Right. So I'd come up with a couple of questions. You came up with a couple of questions.
Yep.
Trying to figure out what the best answer is, and I'll just put it out there to everybody. And you're kind of like me in this. Like, if you ask me the best of, or I suck at it. If somebody says, "What's your favorite movie?" Like, I go into like a sheer panic attack,
right?
Thinking that I'm going to offend that movie,
yeah.
If I pick the wrong one,
yeah.
So I start.
Can we limit it to '90s comedies?
I try to categorize them. I try to like. I'll give you top 5.
Right.
And it's, I don't even really like movies. Like I do, but it's not like I just cannot do it.
Yeah.
I just get my brain just goes. But the first one is going to be what do you feel like your greatest athletic achievement is?
Yeah, and I don't know, like I mentioned just a minute ago getting to go to Golden West as a high school kid, so that was pretty cool. That was the top 8 in the nation in each event, so I went for the hammer throw and had a really great time. I got to see future Olympian Michelle Carter there, so that was pretty cool. And met a lot of really nice people. That's another spot where, you know, you're walking around that meet and it's literally populated with bodies that could be Olympians, you know, like
all mutants.
Yeah, all mutants.
All mutant meat.
Yeah. In the weight room, I've had some pretty good success in the weight room. I did a 705-pound deadlift, and It's all right. I did my best bench is 460, but I was considerably stronger before I tore my bicep tendon. I did 335 for 18, and so like that was, you know, I was at that point I was feeling like 500 was in the.
What was your body weight at the 335?
240.
So body weight plus 95
Yeah.
for 15?
18.
Or 18.
18 reps.
Yeah, that's pretty freaking.
Yeah, don't steal my 3 reps.
Sorry, my bad. I would never. It would be pretty impressive if it was 3 more reps.
Yeah. I was when I did the 705 deadlift, I think I was 210 or 205 or something. You know, I was pretty lean at that point, 2.5 times body weight kind of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I
Or
just had a thought that I'm
3.5 times body weight. That's 3.5 times, isn't it? You'd think, given my profession, that I would be able to get that one figured out.
Yeah. Kyle is a calculus teacher. It's 2 below you. That math is.
Yeah. No,
It's not even a graph.
I wish I could say that was the case, but in reality, I just am, you know,
Are you going to say bad at math?
bad at math.
There's tons of students out here going like, yes, he is.
Yeah. He can't add. I did 29 pull-ups at one point. Oh no, I know. I think. Well, and then for track when
I said pick your best.
Well,
not
I'm
just
thinking.
dominate me in every category. I was
thinking.
hoping there would be one thing you didn't say.
I know what it is. I know what it is.
Kyle can't run more than 100 yards without dying.
I can't even make it that far.
Even when he was a great athlete.
Yeah. I'll go toe to toe with anybody for the first 45, but after that, it's a real struggle.
Yeah.
So after I got hurt, I got into training because of sport, but I really fell in love with training. Like I love training more than I love competing. You know, more than any other sport. I want to train, and I want to train with people, and I want to train people.
I wonder if that would have been different if you didn't get hurt.
I don't know.
I wonder if you fell in love with it because the goal left you,
Right.
for lack of a better term.
Right.
So the only thing you could control, really knowing you in your life, the only thing you could control.
Yeah.
Was
things were pretty crazy when I was a kid.
Was training.
Yeah.
I wonder if that
was a outlet.
We do need a sports psychologist.
We do.
Yeah, we just start both crying. Like, somebody accidentally just gets us a regular psychologist. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I'm down for that. I'll cry on camera. It's all right. I mean, I haven't cried since I was like 7, but I'm sure we can start at some point.
Yeah, I cried last week, man.
Nice. I'm a little jealous.
Soldiers coming home.
Yeah.
You show me one of those.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Like happy, like kids getting scholarships without them knowing.
Yeah. They're
Toast.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. All sorts of things.
Yeah. What were we talking about? We were talking about things, and you're making fun of me. For
one
not
of your
being able to run.
400 athletic achievements.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really should have went first.
You should have gone first.
I really should have went first on this one.
So after I got hurt, I got real kind of obsessive about training economy. Like I was real limited in what I could do because I had that back injury, and it took a long time to recover from. And so I still had goals and stuff, and especially then, you know, I knew how successful my out-of-season training was, and I was like, man, if I can do this, I can go to school anywhere. And I got 5 years of NCAA eligibility after I graduate, so like maybe I can get into good enough shape, find some workarounds, you know, whatever. Maybe I'm still in it, right? Live in the delusion.
Right.
And I got real into training economy, and at one point I did a 39 and a half inch vertical and 11.2 standing long jump. And so those both felt like real accomplishments to me because it wasn't like I was a bad jumper naturally, but I wasn't a great jumper naturally. And so like I went from, 19 inches my first time measuring it to 39.
39 is pretty impressive. Like if I had to guess, you're probably like your standing reach is 8.2, 8.3, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
If I had to guess. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. You really get up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun. Like you feel like you're flying when you're in that kind of shape. And so, that for me was kind of a formative experience in terms of training because I realized how valuable it was to really think about what you were doing and make sure you were making smart decisions. A lot of times in training we have things that we just kick off with. We're like, I'm going to work out on a 7-day schedule and I'm going to do this split and I'm going to, whatever, right?
Right.
And then once you start with those assumptions, you start trying to do the best thing that you can after you've already made just a fleet of assumptions about your training. And so that was one that felt really cool, both because statistically it's pretty rare. Like the way that we measured vertical, so our Coach U, right, when he would get a new group of kids, he'd be like, I want to see who has the highest reach. And so you'd all go out and stand on your tippy toes and reach up as high as you could and like I've seen like at the combine or whatever, they
Yeah,
stand flat-footed.
No one's doing the short arm.
Yeah.
Suck your shoulder down.
Yeah. So I mean, that might be, if it was measured under different circumstances, it might have been like a 44-inch vertical instead of a 39 or whatever. And so that's probably weirdly enough, that's probably the one that
you most excited about.
Yeah.
Which is funny because last year, I think it was last year,
Yeah.
I was working on a new vertical program that I was tooling around with, and I was like, hey, we need to come in, and we did the day one.
Yeah.
I couldn't
warm up.
Yeah, we got to the warm up. I couldn't even complete most of the exercises. I was so unmobile that I couldn't even do these things. Cofield did a good job. He went through all of them, but then for like 3 weeks he was out.
I was wrecked. Yeah, my knee was all the size of a bowling ball. It was rough.
So getting old is tough. Yeah, I definitely don't have, like, in comparison to any, like my running history or my lifting history or my sports history, in each of those silos, I was never necessarily successful. But
I think it's important that we qualify success, because
right.
if you took you and put you on a football team, a high school football team, right, you probably would have been playing almost anywhere that you went to, right?
Right, yeah.
So like you were a good athlete. Yeah.
I always tell the kids, like, I was a pretty good athlete. I was also behind. The senior class ahead of me was insanely talented, and then we had some very good college talent.
Yeah.
In my class as well.
Yeah.
I definitely was more of a kid that was on the team because that's where the best parties were. Right? Now I'm a coach, but so I always liked the team aspect probably better than actually getting out on the field. But so I had to think. I almost had to do some betting and do some parlaying. I think that probably if I had a greatest athletic achievement, it would be the fact that I both ran a fairly fast half marathon. Right, and this is we're gonna talk about this after this, but I ran a half marathon in an hour 34, which is, if you just times it by 2, which you can't, is just outside like Boston Marathon qualifying time, which at least then was 2:59 for my age, and then also having a 3:15 bench. So like I think that parlay,
that Venn diagram,
those two things, is probably pretty rare, but it's the funny thing about being a coach,
right?
And it's funny, I just heard this, it was this morning or last night, a guy was talking about, gosh, I wish I remember what athlete it was. He was it might have been Bo Nichols, the wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
And, now UFC fighter, talking about benching 225. And the guy and so I'm in the world of training, right? So benching 225 gets skewed in my head. Like, I'll give you some knuckles for hitting it, like
right.
Like for me that's like my 150 to 170 pound kids, like you probably playing safety or corner,
right? Like
that's what I want you to be getting, like, so you get skewed in the world of training on what is actually impressive,
right?
So it like brings us to like, and he actually said the thing that we always say, he's like, there's 1% of the population that could bench 225. And you really don't think about that because that's just, you're trying to get everybody to that point, right? Like, I want all my kids benching 225. I want all my kids squatting 315. So, really, if you think about like a 315 bench, it's pretty good. It's probably percentage-wise very high in the percentage of people. As soon as I go to anything,
right, a
powerlifting meet, right? I've been to so many high school powerlifting meets that I would take like 6th in my own weight class. Let alone going into nationals, USAPL nationals. Like I'm getting booed off the stage with some of these kids. And then like my own training partners, just in my own, like, okay, if I can hit 315, like we've worked out.
Yeah.
You're benching 460. Our buddy Travis he benched, it's still a record somewhere in the annals of time, but as a sophomore at, I believe, 132, benched 363.3.
Right.
Shirt, but still.
Yeah, but that was, bench shirts
cares?
weren't quite as fancy back then as they are
that
now
would have been 2003. And then wound up having I think he was in the mid 4s.
Yeah.
At his heaviest, and once he became an adult. So I've constantly, and then my brother was incredibly strong, a 440-pound bencher. I've constantly been around people that are just so much stronger.
Right.
And it always makes it, the kids will complain. They'll be on a rack, and I'll be like, you guys need to be switching weights. You guys aren't the same strength.
Yeah.
He's like, but I can't lift here. He's too much stronger. And he's like 20 pounds stronger on the bench. Like, I've been at racks where I've had to take 2 plates off
Right.
in between sets. Like, shut up. You're fine. You're putting on 2.5s. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, it is always interesting that, you get to those 1%ers, right? Like, I have never actually seen another 700-pound deadlifter in real life. And like, I know they happen pretty regularly at competitions and stuff, but like I've never been there for one. And but like if you look at the all-time, like Hafthor and Eddie Hall and stuff, or if it's like a more traditional meet, Benedict Magnuson, right?
Mark Henry did 900 plus raw.
Yeah.
No suit,
nothing. Yeah, it's like I'm not even close, right?
Yeah, you don't even, you're not invited
right
to that meet.
Right.
They don't even, like, you have to pay to get in, which is insane, right?
Yeah.
It's that 1%. Like, you've told a story about racing a kid in the mile, and it's like by the time you were done with the mile, he had done 7 laps.
Yeah. So
it's like even in that mile or that half marathon I did, 1:30. Like, that's hardly faster than the world record marathon.
Right.
Like, so if
they're running twice as fast.
If the track
for twice as far.
If the track was a 13-mile track, if it was a 12-mile track,
right,
he probably gets me. He laps me before I'm done, that's insanity.
Yeah. That story for me. I had a childhood friend who's one of the most talented distance runners I ever met in my life, and it's a real tragedy that he didn't ever do anything with it. But I was in basketball season. I thought I was in pretty good shape, and so I challenged him to a race because we had to do a time mile for PE, and I ran 9:20, which is still my PR.
2 mile?
1 mile. I ran 1 mile, 9:20, still a PR, and I worked really hard at that a couple times.
Still a PR.
Yeah. I've tied it 2 or 3 times, but maybe I ran a 9:18 or something at one point. But
no, you didn't.
I didn't.
It was a 22.
Yeah, probably. But my buddy, he lapped me 3 times. So he ran 1.75 miles in 9:20. And the third time he lapped me, he was running backwards, cheering me on. Just like, come on, you can do it.
Yeah, that is slow. But
yeah,
you could jump real high and you could bench a lot.
Yeah. I got power in spades.
Listen, I would sell some stats for more on others, right? Like, if I could do that, I would gladly just turn one down. Like, you can only jump 3 inches.
Yeah.
Yes, but I benched 600.
Yeah. That's a deal.
I don't need to jump anymore anyways. Who cares? I can't jump. I couldn't jump, and I still can't. So
I can do 5 jumps every 5 days.
That's what you've
That's
learned?
my volume right now.
Yeah.
And we're working our way up, though. Oh, that's one of the things that we're...
Why?
Because for the show.
There's a jump portion?
There's an everything portion.
So one thing, just so you guys know, we're really interested in, we might just insert Kyle into like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments.
Yeah. We might go do some parties.
Ultimate test of strength versus skill.
Yeah, just
like no skill. You're not at none skill.
I do have some training. I was a prison guard for a little while.
Like non-gym trained.
Yeah.
But insanely strong.
And we'll just go party.
We should start with the lightest. Like, how light could you beat a 95-pound black belt?
Right. Probably not. But it would be fun to try.
And then we'll just go down.
Yeah.
Like, we'll find where you could beat. So, like, you beat a 93-pound purple belt. Still probably whoop your ass. White belt.
Right.
And then we'll just train you to see how long it takes you to... What if you just never got past the 97-pound guy?
That's just my life. It's just a series of comical footage of this giant man getting wrecked by small dudes.
I'd pay to watch that. I'd pay to watch that. It's very funny to me.
Yeah, so because we're doing the show and because we're doing it, like, I want to be able to, like, not just talk about it, but show people that it works, right? So right now I've been trying for the last couple months to try to get back into shape and get some strength back. Upper body stuff's going really well. Lower body's going a little slower. I have a pretty tremendous injury history, but I have been able to do some really good training, and I am getting stronger again. So I'm hoping that, like, once I get a decent level of fitness, then the next step is to do the cut, because that's really the people that we're here to support is our weight class sport competitors, right? And so to do the cut and to show like, hey, if you manage these variables well, you've got those supplementation that's useful, all that kind of stuff, that like it doesn't have to be as damning as a lot of people experience. And then we can also get to the conversation of like, when does it get to the point where you can't really fight it anymore? Like we were talking about before, the guy feeling like he was losing his cognitive capacity as he was getting leaner and leaner. And anybody who's ever done the thing where you've been on a big calorie deficit for a long time, you notice that you start to talk slower, you blink slower, like everything gets way down regulated. And so it'll be interesting to see like, what kind of shape can a busted 40-year-old get into in the first place? And then as we start losing, as we start trimming, trying to work on that body composition portion of it, how long can we keep strength and power and all that kind of stuff. So, and
that's probably actually good just for people in those sports to know.
Right.
Like, we talk about the last powerlifting meet that I did, it would have been in 2019. And I remember I was sitting at like 220 and I was going to lift at, back then,
205, I think is the weight class.
Equivalent. Yeah. I think it was a little bit lower back then. It's changed since then. But, so I got down, I wound up, I didn't want to have to cut the night before.
Right.
So I just got down and I did it. It's like a month. It was what I would consider a smart cut. I just started going down. Maybe I should have done it a month early and just sat at that weight, but
or cut it across 2 months or whatever. Yeah.
But my strength held for like 15 pounds, like 205, and I was still
real strong,
perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And then from 205 to 200 was tremendous strength losses. Weirdly like disproportionate upper body to lower body.
Yeah.
Like my squat and deadlift held on okay. My bench just got wrecked.
Yeah.
It was tremendous losses in that last 5 pounds. But that's something I probably should know about myself. It's like, man, I don't want to get down to that 199 if I was still competing.
Right.
Like maybe I've got to find a way to get to that 205 range and then like, figure out.
Yeah, fill out the next weight class.
Right.
Yeah.
Either just build up, right? Like that would probably be the smarter thing, is just to try to build up if it's possible, right? Like we talked about before, like for lots of reasons, the next weight class might be the right answer. So, if you could win there at the 205 and you can at the 220, like I get it.
Yeah.
But let's try to figure out a way to get there healthy, not with long-lasting ramifications, just training intelligently. Imagine that.
Yeah, in my experience, and it's going to be very different. We're serving a sport population that is competing in tested sports, right? But we also like know people, or because we've been in powerlifting, there's, a lot of special sports supplement usage and untested powerlifting, right? But we want to serve the people who aren't using performance enhancing drugs, right?
Right.
And so if you're, that part of the equation changes a whole bunch of what people do for sport. If you're competing in a sport, bodybuilding or untested powerlifting or whatever, where it's not illegal and not part of the rules or whatever, right? But in the tested, right, you as you get heavier, you can just like keep putting on muscle forever, right? It's like a really wonderful thing about the human body. But then you also got to deal with the fact that you're getting heavier, right? And then when you want to lose weight, right, that body fat seems to be a really key component in, how much you can lose before you start to have real strength deficits. So like in my experience, I've only ever gone through big cuts like really just for health reasons, right? Like I just don't want to be that heavy, right? I want to feel better and look better and live longer. I want to be around when my kids have kids, right? But I've noticed that with those kind of like carefree cuts, when I get down below about 18% body fat, my strength starts to go with it, like almost in step.
Right.
Right. And now I've never really done it really smart. Like I've never done it where like I'm taking creatine and HMB and, you know, all the little things that help with, supporting the efforts in the weight room and stuff, or the efforts in training if the weight room's not your thing. And so I'm real excited to do that this time and see like, if you're doing it right, does that number become 15% or 12%, or like at what point how far can I go and still keep those things? And then the other important part of that to remember is like, I started experiencing those deficits around 18%. And again, I'm just kind of ballparking it because I don't have a DEXA machine at home, right? But that's my best guess. Start experiencing those decrements around 18%, and if I got down to 15 or 12 or 10 and I stayed there for a long time, would you be able to recoup a lot of that?
Right.
Because
or would you stay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Because training in a deficit is very different than training at maintenance. Right.
Yes.
Right. So, that's something that we want to explore this time, is see like, how lean can I go before I start having losses, and then if we have a maintenance phase, can I stay there, and get some of that strength back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what is, like trying to figure out, like we had a pretty successful powerlifter that over his 4-year career, every year he was a lower weight class.
Uh-huh.
He didn't get much stronger if
right.
you just looked at his raw numbers over the 4 years, but he was losing weight for his whole high school career and gaining some strength. So it's like, man, you're really doing something that's impressive.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he's never getting weaker.
Yeah.
Yes, it's only slowly going up, but like comparatively, every time he went down a weight class, it's like more and more impressive at the weight he's able to do. That's uncommon.
Uh-huh.
So,
yeah, it drove me crazy though. I was like, man, just go up 12 weight classes, just get huge.
Well, he started pretty big, so I don't think he was interested in that life anymore.
Yeah, my advice to everybody is to get huge. So I don't know if it's good.
And he got down there and got a girlfriend in high school, and now they're married. So I guess he did the right thing.
Hey, I didn't know he got married.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, Alan, we didn't even get through our questions.
Oh yeah, back to our questions.
Freakiest thing you've ever seen.
Freakiest thing I've ever seen. I'm
gonna start this one.
You start this one.
I'm gonna start this one. So it was funny because you were like, I've never seen. So maybe you changed my answer possibly.
Okay.
So because you were like, I've never even seen another 700-pound deadlift, and it's other than, and we're talking with our eyes.
Right.
Like
obviously, in person.
Obviously, we've seen
in the gym.
Seen bigger ones, but like that first time I went to USAPL Nationals Open and going to like the night show. I forget what they call it, but it's where all the freaks of the adults are, right? And just watching like them starting off 5 platforms, and they got Gino there, and he's going crazy, and it's just like 650, 650, 650, 666, 666, right? Like just 700. I was like, holy crap! Being the volume, none of those lifts were. I mean, they're all insane. A 700-pound deadlift's an insane thing, but none of them were the 900.
Right.
But just to see a
fleet of
gym
dudes.
full, where just crushing that kind of weight, like it was incredibly fun.
Mm-hmm.
First off, like I would love to be able to go back and just watch those things. And that was the only time we ever went to Open Nationals. Since then, I've always taken the kids to high school nationals, which I have seen 1 or 2 absolute mutants. This Greek kid a couple years ago blew my mind, but being able to go see like what the strongest tested guys could do was pretty awesome. But so it really is probably that. There's been the video, and I believe it was this year at the Arnold's. It might be older. I could be completely wrong, but there's a lady that does the 600-pound tractor tire deadlift. It's like maybe a couple inches below the knee, and which is huge, right? A girl pulling that much. But we have a girl as a junior did a 500-pound trap bar deadlift. Much lower handle. It was the high handle on the trap bar, but still it's mid shin. And being able to pull 500 as a junior, it's like that.
In her first year of training.
Right. And she's such a freaky athlete.
Yeah.
That on the video, no one even cheers. She just picks it up. I think you hear like one person give her a clap, like one clap.
Yeah.
And she puts it down and just walks away.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're in it. You don't realize like how special you're seeing. You know what I mean? Like, she's hundreds of pounds stronger than any girl I've ever trained.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, if you were to, put together a list of all the mutants we've ever met or worked with, she's on it. She's phenomenal. Yeah.
Right. Like, she's fighting for being the number 1 spot, just in her raw ability. And she's just a load of fun to train. So what is yours?
So I was thinking I had a couple from track and field days. I got to see Dylan Armstrong throw the hammer and set a North American record, I believe it was. And that was pretty cool. He threw it so far at one point that it came out of the field and bounced off the track and was like endangering people's lives. It was pretty wicked.
At a full meet?
Yeah. So normally when they did hammer, they don't do hammer at every track meet.
Right.
And so when they do it, they often do it at like, 9 in the morning or something before everybody's
there. No one
there.
else is even allowed to be there.
Yeah.
Probably smart.
Yeah. If you follow if everybody does what they're supposed to do, it's pretty safe.
Which always happens.
Yeah.
Everybody is always doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So that's why you do it early, to shave off the edge for the people who aren't, paying attention. Don't want to be there.
Just this last year, I was helping out at local track meet, and they were saying that like the week before, a girl walked across discus.
Got hit?
Right in the teeth.
Oh, jeez.
One of the athletes. Like you've been to many, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. You just get distracted for 1 second, walked across the thing, took a disc to the teeth.
I got hit by a discus twice.
Sans teeth.
I got hit by a girl's discus at 130 feet, got hit in the neck. Like just right here, kind of the meaty part, Got real lucky where it hit me. If it had been up 2 inches or something, I'd probably be dead, And then I got hit in the knee one time too.
That would make this podcast way more awkward.
If I was dead?
Yeah.
Or if I just had like really more severe brain damage than I already do. We should talk about concussions at some point.
Let's not go down that path.
We'll save that one for later. Yeah, it's not fun. But anyway, we got to see Dylan throw. That was really cool. He ended up being I think a bronze medalist in the shot put at the Olympics. Really, really phenomenal athlete. Like some of the stuff he did, like that you hear stories of, you're like, that can't be real. And then, that was. I got to see at that Golden West that I got to go to. I got to see Michelle Carter throw. I mentioned that already. And then she went on to be an Olympic medalist. And then there was one kid I remember we watched do the high jump. And there was a guy who, I don't remember if he won or if he got second, but he jumped like 7'10" or something crazy. Like, he was just phenomenal height. But like, unlike all the other jumpers, he appeared to continue to accelerate after he left the ground. Off. Yeah, it was like, I'd have been checking him for shoe boosters.
You got them shoe boosters in there?
Yeah, that was pretty cool to see. And then one of our hopeful guests was an Oregon decathlete, and Oregon's like the pinnacle track school in the U.S. And he was I got to do some like testing with him one time, and we were doing a standing triple jump. And I had just started training seriously. Like I was just a couple months into it, and he was like home on spring break and, just playing around with us or whatever. But we did that standing triple jump, and I remember I had the same experience when he did that second jump. It was like, he did the first one, and it was massive. It was 11 or 12 feet or something on his first jump. And then when he hit and rebounded, it was like he had transformed into a deer.
Bounding.
Yeah, it was just, and it was such a that second jump was so big that like he had a hard time recovering the third. Like the third wasn't quite as big as the second one.
His knee wasn't strong enough to absorb such impact.
Yeah, if he had been a little stronger
jump.
or something, he might have been a 70-foot standing triple jumper instead of a 40-foot standing triple jumper. It just made me think of
something. We need to find out the freakiest school teacher, because this guy's now a school teacher.
Oh, yeah.
So there's lots of kids in his class that are just sitting there. I think he's construction.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this guy, he's a good construction teacher.
Uh-huh.
He was also a freaky athlete.
Yeah.
Like that, finding the nation's freakiest, I should say,
I think Jen Thompson,
athletically freakiest school teacher would be that'd be a fun little thing.
Yeah. I think Jen Thompson is a math teacher, and like in terms of like number of standard deviations above the mean, I'm pretty sure that her bench press would put her ahead of everybody. Yeah, it's pretty phenomenally out there.
Well,
but that was also kind of a real transformative moment for me in training, because I didn't know that kind of thing was possible. Like, so seeing him jump like that was, before going to the really big meets that I got to go to, it was the first time like seeing somebody who was really exceptional do something and just being like, oh, that's an option.
Yeah.
So somebody can do that. I could do that.
Yeah.
Is anybody gonna stop me?
Which kind of puts you one of two ways. You either see that and you go, can't do it. Or you're like, oh,
yeah,
there's more options. It doesn't mean you're going to get there.
Right.
But
yeah,
you have you're training at a different roof.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden.
Yeah. I mean, we just mentioned that we grew up in a really great weight room, and it wasn't insane to have somebody bench press 380 or 400 pounds in our gym. It wasn't insane to have somebody, as a high school kid, right, to deadlift 600 pounds. Wasn't an insane thing. To squat 600 pounds wasn't insane. To clean 300. Like, that was all things that I saw in the weight room, other people doing. And, that has a really big impact on what you think is normal. Like, I assumed that if there's high school kids, flirting with 650 or 700 or whatever, that the world record must have been like 2,000 pounds on the deadlift.
Right.
I had no idea that it was, I think at that point in time it was like 980 or something, and so it really affects the performance when you're around people who are just doing stuff. And
yeah. I mean, if you just think of like the psychology of trying to be normal,
mm-hmm.
once you get into the realm of normal, there's a lot of people, and I'm probably this kind of person, that are going to take their foot off the gas pedal.
Right.
Like, all right, I have arrived. Whereas, so if that normal is a 200-pound bench, you get to 200 and you're like, all right, maybe I'll land somewhere in the 200s.
Right.
But if that normal is 400, like, I'm not slowing down at 200.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to keep going, got to keep training, got to keep going hard, and all of a sudden you land higher.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't get to 400.
Well, when we both came back to the weight room, right, and started coaching, there was no 300-pound bench pressers or
Right.
500-pound squatters or anything, right?
And there wasn't any 400-pound squatters.
Yeah, and it's taken a long time, but it's been a pretty abrupt change all of a sudden. Like there just weren't 300-pound bench pressers forever, and then once somebody cracked it,
yeah,
all of a sudden it's
right.
wide
you
open.
You start to really expand just the goals, the norms, like
Mm-hmm.
and kids fit the norms, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So wherever you're training, train with people who are awesome.
Gosh, don't ever be the strongest person.
Yeah.
Which is hard for you, and you like to train alone anyways. But
yeah, I got it.
I'd rather be the weakest person. Give me a whole group of people and make me the worst.
Mm-hmm.
That's always, I feel like that's where I'm going to strive. Because like I have confidence in myself. So if I'm the worst person here, like this is a good squad of people.
Right.
But I really like coming from behind. Like I don't really want to. God damn. I don't. It's better than the opposite. I don't really want to be the front runner.
Right.
Like I don't mind leading, but in athletics, like I'd rather
right.
be the underdog.
Yeah, yeah.
I've always the way I say that there.
I've always really enjoyed, I had a lot of that when I started. There was a lot of people who were stronger than me, but then it got to the point where and there's a lot of people who've done this where they got to where they were really successful, and so they went and found other gyms, right? Like every
other gyms, other coaches.
Right.
I don't know that I have the tools right away to train a 900-pound deadlifter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a special, like, what, we will talk about this ad nauseum, I'm sure, but like to get from A to B requires one set of tools. To get from B to C is a different set of tools.
Right.
To get from C to D is, and it's going to be largely dependent on the athlete and their training history and what they respond to. But like, if you got one thing that you fell in love with and you just do it for the rest of your career, the progress that you're going to see is going to be markedly capped. Like you're not gonna blow people out of the water. You got to have the flexibility to say like, okay, I did this training cycle, had huge progress. I did it again, middling progress.
Right.
I did it again, basically no progress. It's time to change gears. Like you got to find the new thing that you need in order to get better. But like I hear stories like Benedict Magnuson has a great story about that, where like he wanted to train at this gym, so he got a tent and he slept in a field next to the gym. He was like, this is where I'm going to train, so this is what I'm going to do. And so you hear that from a lot of people who are really successful, is they just went and did whatever they had to do to make it to the next level. Right? Like if it's going to train somewhere, sleeping on somebody's couch, Martins Lisi's, I think, stayed at Ode Haugen's garage for a while and then became world's strongest man years later. And
Ronnie Coleman started bodybuilding just for the free membership.
For the gym membership. So I think that, I forgot what even got us on this conversation. Oh, being the not being the best one in the room. I think it's super, super important that if you really, really want to be great, that you go to wherever the greatness is and learn whatever you can, and keep doing that over and over.
Right.
Yeah. it's not, those kinds of environments haven't always been good for me personally, because I'm always the one who takes things too far. It's like, hey, let's do some, heavy partial squats just for fun. And I'm like, yeah, let's see who can walk with 2,000 pounds. And everybody else is like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you're just here's the thing. Like every guy wants to do that. Like me and one of my wrestlers, I was showing them heavy holds just for hand strength.
Yeah.
And we had the farmer handles out, and like at like 150 was probably heavy enough.
Yeah. You can do a workout,
but of course we didn't stop there. We wanted to see who could hold more. You know what I mean? So we got up there, and it was like 250, 260 on each hand.
Yeah.
Eventually, I was like, all right, you got a tournament, man. We need to stop. If I hurt you right now, your coach is going to be very upset with me. Injuring your forearm for a
wrestling match.
Heavy hold, So, yeah, I think you're just a normal person. You just have an ability, especially in weird things.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that I feel pain like everybody else does. And so, like, everybody else, like, this is really uncomfortable. And I'm like, I'm having fun.
Yeah, and you also, there's one universal constant, is that we're at any point in time 6 months away from a Cofield injury, either prior or coming. You're never more than 6 months away from Cofield injury, and that's probably why.
It's a great learning tool, though. Man, you want to talk about picking up a lot of stuff fast, just go tear something off the bone. You'll learn real quick if you got to figure out how to get back into it.
Yeah, I think I'll be ignorant there.
Yeah, don't take that advice. That was really bad advice. Don't do that.
Blow a bicep. You'll learn
fast.
You haven't learned. That's actually bad advice.
No, I have. I'm making changes. I'm doing things different.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He trains himself. If you ever looked at his training for himself, people would be like, what in the hell is this guy doing?
All the best stuff.
Yeah.
All the best stuff. Gotta love that training economy.
Yeah. Question 3?
Question 3. Best coaching experience.
Oh. Okay. Do you have one in your mind?
I do. Do you want me to go first?
No. Probably best coaching experience was the wraparound of a year. So I did powerlifting. Unfortunately, this last year was my last year being the powerlifting coach.
Hey, what is your powerlifting coach record, by the way? Since we're doing bona fides, right? Like, I got power.
Well, I guess that would,
and I like
that
training.
Probably would be my greatest athletic achievement, was not me being the athlete.
Right.
So, yeah, over the 9 years that I was a powerlifting coach at Shelton High School, I won 9 state championships. And I think it was something like 50, 55 individual champions, and a couple went to nationals and did well.
Yep.
Some went to nationals and didn't do so well, but still making it to nationals is an impressive thing. For boys and girls, it doesn't mean I won every championship every year. Technically, there was 18 to get between boys and girls. I won 9. Still very impressive. Very impressive feat. Last year, got inducted into the Swanee State High School powerlifting.
Attaboy.
So that's pretty cool. And then I went out on top, baby. I said, I'm just going to spin this up because everybody cares about that plaque that I got on my wall that hardly anybody knows what it is, but I love it. So probably, and I don't know why this one sticks out so much, because after that I had much more impressive athletes. But early on, and it was in a year where me, you, and our friend Matt were all coaching together, which was a special thing. So a lot of the times it was just me going, and so it was already cool that I had other people there, especially when the team gets bigger.
Yeah, because we had like 70 kids that year.
Yeah, I can't effectively coach everybody.
Yeah.
Luckily, in powerlifting, one thing that I've learned is a lot of the kids that are super into it, they want to stretch their own legs. They want to come with their own training. So I just kind of look at their stuff.
Provide a little guidance.
Some guidance, some tweaks, and but for the most part, like we've talked about this, whatever training program that is going to make you keep coming back, and that's the right one. Now, there are some that do some crazy things, and I'll give like, maybe
if you want to be the best ever, at some point you're going to have to give up the things that you like doing for the things that are effective. But if you're a high school kid who's in their first 2 or 3 years of training, most anything you do that's not stupid is going to be good for you.
Rarely have I ever even seen kids get to a real plateau.
Right.
Rarely.
Yeah.
Like most of the kids, I've had a few that we've had to change up the way that, and a few that I actually started training like power lifters.
Right.
Most of them I trained as general athletes.
Yeah.
Strength.
Yeah.
Athletes, like,
One of the big things about teaching kids how to use the weight room, my favorite thing about it is that there's weight rooms everywhere. You can use weight rooms for the rest of your life. It's economical. It's time. It's like it's a good use of time. It doesn't take a huge amount of time to make a good use of a weight room, and it has a dramatic impact on health outcomes for the whole rest of your life.
Yeah.
So if we can just teach kids to enjoy being in the weight room, and some basics for like what makes a workout smart or stupid or dangerous, then they're set for the next 70 years. Right.
But anyways, there was a girl, Maria Garcia, that year. Loved training her, great athlete. And she pulled, I can't remember what weight class. I think she was in the 132 or 123. One of the two. Sorry, Maria, if you ever watch this. But she pulled.
I apologize for nothing.
A 260 deadlift to win. So the girl had already pulled her weight, and we knew. I think her PR at the time was 240.
Yeah.
And
so
it
was a jump.
She had already secured second. So we just were like,
go for it.
Just put 260 on the bar. I hadn't had a girl that was like the very beginning of our girls team. Like we had a little success. I think I won state with the boys the year prior.
Right.
But nobody in our school's history had ever won a girls state championship. And so it was kind of that first group of girls. There was a nice core, like 5 girls.
Great kids, wonderful human beings.
She pulled this like 9-second grinder.
Yeah, it was
of
epic.
A deadlift. Like I think it was at North Beach.
It was a lift that I would never recommend anybody attempt in their lives. Like that's like if you want to talk about tweaking a back or pulling a hamstring or something, that was
right.
But she went in. There wasn't too much fatigue. It wasn't too much. She did it.
I'll tell you this much: like you ever want, and Eddie Hall kind of talks about like the mom lifting car, for a deadlift. Like I've seen people lift, and I even tell the kids like, if you lift for the state title on your deadlift, like in that situation, I've had that actually a couple of times. Like I've seen people hit it and then not for a full year of training,
never come back to
never
those
get back to it.
Yeah.
And that actually becomes crushing for some of them. 'Cause it's like, oh, I deadlifted this. It happened to, oh gosh, I'm slipping. Madison Gill.
Yeah.
Did it for state her sophomore year. And by her senior year, I think she got that number again her senior year.
Yeah.
And I always told her it's not because you're not getting stronger. It's because that was just that freaky of a lift. That Maria Garcia 260 I think was and I've had way strong, Yenny deadlifted 445 last year.
Yeah.
Which she broke this first girl I've ever had. First girl anybody in our federation that broke 1,000 pound total. Like just beyond freaky.
Right.
But that one, the Maria one was special because that was our first girls state championship, and we won boys and girls that year. So it was just that era, like when it all started. And I think that a lot of coaches would say that, like the first ones are not that they're less special,
right? But
you hadn't done it before. Like it became an expectation,
right?
After that, we were very dominant for a little while. Like so, it became winning. Became the expectation, which makes it less
almost
special.
to a point. I do remember having kids, like that first year because that was the first year I was there. And I remember it just being fun. I was like, hey, look at these kids want to do stuff. That's great. And then like the next year, all of a sudden it was like, why can't we get the ones that we need to come out? Like there was like a level of frustration because like you said, it almost becomes an expectation. Like you showed up and you did good. People expect you to show up and do good again. And the first year, whoever we had, I was happy to work with. And then the second year, I was like, trying to recruit a little harder, So, yeah, it definitely changed the vibe. Yeah.
All right, what about you?
My best coaching experience? So mine was maybe that same year, maybe the year after. But we got a girl in who
this would have been at least one more year after.
Yeah, I mean, we had the same crew there, so it would have been their junior, senior year, but because I remember them interacting at a meet. But we had a girl who came in, and she's like, I want to do powerlifting. I got cleared by my doctor. I was like, great. Why did your doctor need to clear you? Like, it's always good. Like, if you're going to start a diet or exercise thing, you absolutely should go check with a, doctor and make sure that you don't have a heart condition and whatever, right? Like, go get that sports physical. Good idea. But we rarely have that for kids walking in the weight room at the high school. They just show up and want to train. So I was like, why did you need to get cleared? And she's like, well, I had my spine reconstructed. So she'd had really severe scoliosis and had her whole spine rebuilt. And you know, I was like, okay, this is new for me. I've never worked with anybody who had their spine rebuilt. And I was like, okay, well, before we get started, you know, powerlifting is the squat, bench, and deadlift. So let's just sit in a chair for me. Let's see what that looks like, because, you know, going from a spine that's like
right, yeah,
to you're 4 inches taller, you know, like none of the musculature is used to doing stuff. You probably got all kinds of compensatory movement patterns from having scoliosis, and then more from having the surgery, right? And man, that girl just trying to sit down on like a 12-inch box was like a lawn chair in a tornado. It was just didn't make any sense. Like everything was going everywhere. So it was like weeks of work to get her to just like get to where she could move a knee and a hip at the same time, or ankle and a knee at the same time, and, you know, like rebuild those movement patterns to where she could squat and bench press and deadlift. And then, you know, there's that whole element of like, you know, our body works best as a system. Like a lot of times when we talk about biomechanics, things get too simplified. You know, it's like your bicep does this job, right? It's like, that's true. But if you've ever torn your bicep tendon and then tried to push open a door, you'll find out that it's also critically important for pushing open a door, because it hurts like crazy, right? And so our body works as a system. And so when you've had somebody in there cutting everything and stitching everything back together, and stuff has got scars and doesn't have scars, and so you got to be really, really, really conscientious about what you're doing and everything. You know, I don't want to take a 17-year-old and wreck them for the rest of their life, right? So we worked really hard for a long time just trying to make sure that there was like the quality of movement and level of fitness, that it wasn't going to be detrimental to her to be doing it, right? And I remember at her first powerlifting meet, she deadlifted 70 pounds, and she was so happy she cried. And I was like, this is the best feeling I think that a person can have, you know, like.
It's interesting because there's been like, you know, look into the behind the scenes of a coach. Like,
right.
Not every coach likes every athlete.
Right.
And just when you said that, it's like, yeah, man, that's, like I said, that's that athlete story when I was, you know, like that would make me cry, you know.
Right.
But I've had guys going for a state title.
Right.
That in my head, now they would not know this ever.
Right.
Like I'm very good at, you know, I'm going to give everybody the love. But I've literally in my own head been like, miss this. There's nothing good going to come from it. And I was correct. They won. It just fueled the arrogance of how great they were. It's like, you're just sometimes in the sport of powerlifting, especially at the state level, once you get to the national level,
it's very much a numbers game. Like we talked about the 1% thing, right? Like there's only, you know, a few hundred or a few thousand 700-pound deadlifters in the world, right? And so like you're not going to run into them in your local arena, right?
And they just might, like we always talk about, the kids will always come up every year. They're like, I'm going to cut some weight.
Right.
Just hold on.
Yeah.
You know, it's August, states in May.
Right.
Like, hold off, because you might be cutting to the mutant.
Right.
Like you might be in the 148. The mutant is in the 132.
Right.
You're good. Stay there. We just don't know. So just hold off for a little bit. But kids are always, they make the assumption that lower is weaker, and
it's not always true.
It's not always true. I won't say rarely, but the strength of totals rarely just does that through the weight classes.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot of times you'll hit peaks and valleys.
Yeah, again, until you get to the national or world
At the
stage.
national level, it starts to it works its way out.
Yeah.
It really does. But even then, if you look at like USAPL qualifying totals, it doesn't just, every weight class doesn't.
Right.
It gets to like 198.
And it gets pretty flat.
Or the equivalent.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
It's, I think maybe heavyweight, which for them, unlimited is like over 305. I can't remember exactly. I haven't had a USAPL heavyweight. And for ours, our unlimited is just after 242. But I think it climbs a little bit there. But it's really flat there for like all of that mid 200s to like high 100s.
Yeah.
So even there is kind of like that, like you're heavy enough to be strong as hell.
Right.
And then unlimited is true unlimited.
Right.
Like there's really strong, very large humans.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Question 4?
No, before we get to question, I want to talk about the kid who that it's not good for them to be successful.
Yeah.
We talked about reasons that people don't make it.
Train wreck after that, by the way.
Yeah, sometimes it happens.
Okay.
We talked about the reasons why people don't make it, and I think that was a big part of the reason why I wasn't successful, right? Because when I started training, again, having Rich around was, in my case, it was kind of a double-edged sword because he kept every piece of literature and every book for, he started training in 1955, so for 45 years by the time I got there, 47 years by the time I got there. And so he had these filing cabinets just full of stuff, and I read all of it. And then I thought that I knew better than everybody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was a very difficult to train kid. Like as an adult, like when I was like 26, I think I figured it out one day. I had an epiphany and I was like, if I took people's advice, life would probably be a little easier.
Right, yeah. Which really like it might have even been like today I tell people, if you're looking at Instagram or YouTube or us, right? Like we are now in that realm. Like most everybody is saying similar things, but you got to understand that everybody's got to be different enough to make their break.
Right.
Like there's got to be something that I say that's different enough that you're going to come to me, not you.
Right.
So like be careful. And it probably was even crazier with the stuff that you were reading.
Right.
Because it was just ideas that worked on one athlete and they published a story. And Coach, he just had volume.
Yeah.
He wasn't editing.
Right. Yeah, he just had all the stuff.
Had the stuff.
And so I, built myself my own workout routines and stuff, but they were largely based on, workout routines that had been really successful for national level programs. And what I didn't understand in 2002 is that all of the big sports in the 80s were gassed to the gills.
It's like, we're doing heavy sessions 3 times a day. Like, I get so fatigued. Like, yes, you do.
Yeah, a big part of the reason why I ended up with that herniated disc was just too much. I got sick and I kept training, and I was sick for months and kept training. And, I was young and I'm good at it. And so I kept getting stronger and faster, even though I was sick and, my recovery was going down and everything. And then it ended up being really traumatic. But, there was a bunch of people who tried to tell me, there was a bunch of people who were like, hey, I think you're going a little too hard. If you don't put in a little more breaks, do a little less heavy hip hinge, do a little more of this or that or whatever, you're probably going to end up tearing something or herniating something. And like, you just, number one, I had no fitness when I started. I'd stayed up all night playing video games. I slept at school. I was not a good student, right? and so, I didn't have the base of fitness. So like, I'm looking at stuff from like Anatoly Bondarchuk training the East German team or whatever. I forget where he coached, but he's training them, and by the time he got them, they'd already been in a sports system for 10 years. Right. And I was coming off the couch trying to reproduce, training that, an Olympian was doing on all the drugs in the world, with all the supervision, with all the food, with all the everything,
with
else,
the
right?
10 selected mutants of the nation.
Yeah.
You are a mutant.
Yeah, with the 10 mutants who survived the 10 years of training camp to get there, right? Like they might have had more talented people who didn't make it because they couldn't do that kind of volume or they couldn't do that kind of recovery, right? And so, that what's good for a kid, it's funny because sometimes it is the failure. Like I had to fail pretty hard a couple of times before I started actually listening when people talk to me,
Right.
And so, it's an interesting thing about working with.
I think, and that's in the world of weightlifting, that's supernatural. Like who do you go ask for advice?
Yeah, the most jacked dude.
The giant guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you don't necessarily realize when you're starting that that's like maybe 90% genetics.
Yeah.
And
then, but it's funny, like, and it's not always like this, but like anytime I go like to like a convention or if I go like to USAPL Nationals, like there are really large coaches. There are, you know what I mean? There's some very large people. That know what they're talking about.
We've got a friend locally who's a monster.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's way more. Just like stubby, pudgy, like if you were just in a weight room, you wouldn't be like, I'm asking that person. They're the most knowledgeable guys on the planet.
Yeah.
Like, so just taking advice because like you were the largest person, so I know
Right.
I'm stronger than you. I know more than you.
Right.
And it's just such a dangerous, but I meet way more people like that than.
Well, and we've had friends like in our training career who were super sweet people but didn't know anything about training and looked like Greek gods. Like, they could have made their whole living off of just looking really good and being more jacked than everybody else. But literally, like, if you talk to them about training, they're like, I do some curls and then I do some bench press.
I think we're thinking of the same guy there. 18-inch biceps when he was like 16.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Wonderful
man.
What can I say?
Yeah, I love him to death. He's a sweet guy. What's our next one? Dream athlete.
Easiest one in the world. My dream athlete
Yeah.
is someone that just wants to work hard.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
I
work
mean, that's one of the things I'm hoping to expand on in the show is
I could put up with almost every other attribute.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love psychos. I love people who you have to tell them it's time to stop.
Yeah.
Like they always want to do one more. Those are my favorite.
Kids learn that in the weight room all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I misquote this all the time. I think it was Jimmy Johnson, the football coach. And he said something along the lines of like, the only way that I'm going to treat you all the same is that I'm going to treat you differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to treat Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman the same way I'm going to treat you.
Right.
They're going to get special treatment. And kids learn that. There's a couple of kids that I have that are just their work ethic in the weight room is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then some other kids get a little upset because they get privileges.
Right.
And I'm like, listen, this isn't against you.
Right.
They've earned things. Their effort has earned them that privilege.
Right. Yeah.
Like what training in a school setting is a little weird. I'm under time constraints that I don't like. You have a huge mix of kids that want to train, that have
every
trained.
Different level of ability and fitness
like,
and everything else.
So I have from beginners to fourth year athletes in there. And my classes are between, 60 to 110 kids at a time. So it's a very unideal. And we talked about this last week. Like, I'm the one that runs all the training in that room.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to you, I would never make that. Like, I'm the one that made it.
Uh-huh.
But I look at my training and it's like, it's just in any other scenario, I would have never trained the kids the way that I train. It's just what I've learned is like the best way to train in those scenarios.
Yeah, you're trying to keep a large group of kids engaged and make some progress.
Yeah, I tell kids up front, like, my goal is to get everybody up to 80% of their potential.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go past that, that's got to happen outside of the class.
Yeah.
I just don't have the capability. Or I could go the other way and ignore everybody
Right.
and make the few as close to potential as possible.
This is a conversation I really want to have with some other coaches. Like, I'm really curious to see.
Which one do you do? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably would have depended if, like, the other coaches that are around me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I wasn't a football coach, I might have went the other way. If I was just powerlifting,
Right.
I might have really tried to pay attention to just the few talented powerlifters.
Right.
And then left everybody else to just get stronger.
Right. But if
Gave
you're
them
running a
knowledge.
60-man roster,
Right.
you want to be able to pull somebody
Right.
from that roster and have
Absolutely.
them not get bowled over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and in sports, a lot of times you don't necessarily need to get to, like, you just need your absolute power to be over a certain threshold
Mm-hmm.
and then it's,
Then you can
diminishing
participate.
returns after
Yeah.
that, right? So that's the way that we had to do that. But I don't even know how the hell we got on that question. What was the question?
I don't know. You need a notepad.
What was question 4? What, am I going to be taking notes during
Yeah,
this
take
thing?
notes during the podcast.
Listen, I made it
Detailed
through
notes.
college without taking a note. I ain't taking notes while I'm freaking on a podcast.
That's not a brag.
It was a very tough college.
Was it?
I don't know. It was tough with no notes.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think we're kind of wrapping it up. I mean, we're
Dream athlete. Yeah.
yeah.
Just give me someone that wants to work.
Somebody that wants to work.
I don't care if you're. I don't care where you are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like you said, your favorite athlete you trained was someone that deadlifted 70 pounds,
Yeah,
and mine was like 260, has been beat
a million times.
so many times.
Yeah,
Like I chuckle now, because that's not a record on my record board. Like,
yeah, it's gone.
all the way down to 114.
Right.
Is lifting more than that.
Yeah,
So, but it was just, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something special about that first one. So just
yeah. I mean, I think that, like, I'm always going to be more effective with power athletes because that was my experience. Like I could help an endurance athlete and I could help a bodybuilder and whatever, but like if you really want to get to, top fuel status, I'm most useful for a power athlete, right? So like if I could find somebody who's a talented power athlete and would go until I told them to stop, that would be my
training what you know.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Like, so, I mean, it's a large school, but we're still kind of in a smaller town.
Right.
So we don't have a ton of access.
Right. There's no climbing
things.
gym.
Right. So, I'm the school strength coach, and with football, like I was everything.
Mm-hmm.
Speed, conditioning,
right.
stretch, like I did everything. But like on the track is not where I've been trained. Like I definitely have, magnitudes more knowledge in the weight room, specifically powerlifting.
Right.
I've trained some Olympic lifting, obviously.
Right.
And now I've trained some sprinting, but like, God, just give me, when they ask like, what do I need? Like, give me somebody that's no weight room. I don't even care if it's weight room. Give me a sprint coach.
Right.
And then we can, like, that would be my best. Because everything that I'm saying is something that I learned the night before.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we did it together where we went and like, oh, I'm going to start training off this program or this concept. And we went in and started testing our, I remember going into the gym and testing our shuttle. Trying to figure out concepts, like how does this work better? Oh, we're way faster with this step.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just practicing those things.
Yeah. So what's the skill of them?
I'm about to teach this, and it's something that's a technique that I've never used. It's a test that I hadn't done, so it's kind of nice to teach what you know. But
yeah, and the shuttle was a really interesting one because it was like, man, if we got kids who are strong enough, they can do this, and it'll shave, half a
one thing
second
I've noticed
shuttle.
is like with the shuttle, I guess this doesn't need to be on this freaking episode, but it has almost nothing to do with how fast. So what we're talking about is the 5-10-5. Start in the middle, 5 yards, 10 yards, back through.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even the fast kids. A lot of times my fast kids wind up going way too fast into the turn.
Mm-hmm.
It really is like deceleration, jump into that turn, and how fast can you twitch back out the other side?
Yeah, it's almost like a dance. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2.
Which sometimes
3,
I think like, and what is that even showing you?
Yeah.
As a coach, like, so some of my best athletes don't perform well, even though they are actually better at change of direction in a game than this guy, but their numbers are worse because they didn't train that drill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I almost think like at a combine, you just have a wheel of drills.
Like, and people get what they get.
You're doing that one. Let's see it. Untrained. You know what I mean? Like you should be doing the things untrained, not going to, and these jobs are important because that's how we do it. But like going to a coach that's going to teach you for 6 weeks how to run the 40 and you shave like 0.4 off your, like you didn't get faster.
Right.
You just learned how to express your speed through this drill.
Yeah.
So it's like,
that was something that I was interested in when I was doing that jump training when I was in my early 20s after that injury and everything. I was having a lot of success with the jump training, and I wasn't having a lot of success with the speed training until I got a video camera. So I got a video camera, and I recorded myself sprinting, and I was like, it looks like somebody just tasered a donkey. Like, it's not, like, I don't know how to run,
Right.
And so I think that there's a lot of use in having athletes solve problems. Like if you teach them a shuttle, if you teach them like an Olympic style clean or snatch, like there's rhythm and timing components in there that I think are really important. And when you see people who do those well on the field, it always stands out. Like, you always see somebody who can read a group of guys and just kind of like, oh, I need to slow down. I need to speed up. I need to stop and go. Right. And it looks fun, like I was never great at that kind of thing. And so when I was out on a field doing good, it was because I was just plowing people over, just going faster than everybody else or whatever. Right. And they're very different skill sets. So, I think it's still valuable in terms of,
absolutely
learning stuff.
Learning. So you're like talking about like your actual like biomechanics.
Yeah.
Whereas like spending 2 weeks on a leaning 3-point start in the 40 with a very explosive first step.
Uh-huh.
Like there's no part on
Right.
a football field that will ever happen.
Right.
And if like you could just look like John Ross at the time, I believe set the 40 record in the combine, and then he went to the Bengals. Well, guess
Yeah.
what? You just go and press him.
Right.
You don't get to take off.
Right.
I'm just going to jam your ass at the line.
Yeah.
So you're learning a skill to pass a test, which his speed translates. Speed is speed.
Yeah.
He's still one of the fastest people.
Yeah. Running like a taser
But-
donkey. I still ran fast.
Right.
You know.
Like, but that's what we really want. We want you to get faster, but we're training, we're both teachers.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying right there. I want them to get smarter.
Yeah. Have more tools in
Not
their tool bag.
necessarily do better on a test.
Yeah.
I just want them to be more intelligent. I want the kids I want to spend the time, and maybe part of that is just coming from coaching for so long with such a small amount of time with the kids. So like that's the one thing I really is like I can't even get through what I would consider like a full day's work.
Uh-huh.
So I get really obsessed with like bang for your buck.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that's like if I had 2 hours, with the kids, and like when I do summer stuff with the football team, like now I don't mind putting in a 10-minute 40 form
Mhm.
or a shuttle form or a vertical form, stuff like that. Like, but to spend a ton of time teaching the 3-point start, like all of my kids run 2-point starts
Uh-huh.
on the 40. Another thing that we learned, like when we went out there, like
Right.
we were way slower out of the 3-point start
Without the practice and
because
experience.
we weren't effective at the movement.
Mhm.
Now, once you become effective at it, you become faster.
Yeah.
But I noticed that first year that I did 40s, everybody's hand down time was slower.
Then just starting them standing.
Just stand up and
Yeah,
run.
yeah.
Like they're so ineffective of coming out of there in any sort of real, they're down there, but then they just stand directly up
Mm-hmm.
and then start running. It's like, dude, you start up,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, they're just taking an extra quarter second to stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're here. We're going to put out stuff. We're going to try to do a show every week. That's the dream. That's the hope. That's the goal. And we're going to have a Instagram going at some point. So
Yep.
if you want to come see extra content, we'll be there. And yeah, thanks for joining us on our first episode.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
All right.
We done?
I think so. Did we do it?
Music's going right now.
I don't know. Probably.
Funk spaghetti. What's it called?
Funk sandwich.
Funk sandwich. Funk sandwich.
Shout out to Danny.
Enjoy funk sandwich.
All right.